In this episode, we speak with Marc Freed-Finnegan, co-founder and CEO of Chalk, a data platform that powers machine learning and generative AI with real-time Python-native infrastructure for developers and data teams. Chalk recently raised a $50 million Series A round at a $500 million valuation. The round was led by Felicis, with participation from Triatomic Capital, General Catalyst, Unusual Ventures, and Xfund. The funding will accelerate Chalk's efforts to scale its Rust-based feature engine and support a growing number of enterprise AI teams building real-time systems. I'm your host, RJ Lumba. We hope you enjoy the show. If you like the episode, click to follow.
RJ Lumba is the managing partner of Growth Cap and the executive chairman of Market Insight Media. He is the host of Growth Investor, a podcast featuring today's best investors, executives, and founders. In the minutes ahead, we'll uncover insights and strategies for accelerating growth and succeeding in business.
Marc, thank you so much for taking the time to chat with us today. It's a delight to be with you.
Thank you so much, RJ. It's great to hang out.
So this is one of the first episodes we've done related to earlier stage funding, but your company is growing quickly. You've got great backers. You're achieving some scale early on. And you're in this area of AI, which is also somewhat new to us to feature AI companies. We've done a lot of software, more traditional B2B software. But maybe for my benefit and the benefit of our audience, if we could start off with Chalk and what it does. And then after that, we'll head into your background.
Absolutely. I love that. Chalk is the data platform for inference. So obviously, everyone is talking a huge amount about training these days, and people spend a huge amount of time and money training a model. And you've got this great model, but the thing is, once you have a really good model, you might want to run it again and again, maybe forever. And what we're talking about with inference is when you're literally running the model and incorporating new data and actually getting an answer for users. And so that's what we're helping our customers to do, is to get data to their models at inference time. And we're especially helpful when the data is coming from a lot of different places, when they want to do computation on the data in response to a user click or a user action, and especially when they want to have really, really fresh data. So Chalk is a developer product. We provide tooling and infrastructure that allows our partners to get data to their models at inference time so they can provide really fresh, real-time answers to their users, whether that's the freshest possible recommendations of what they might be interested in buying or watching, whether that's an instant loan decision, an instant onboarding decision to create an account, an instant fraud decision, yes or no on money movement. So they're really a broad range of applications. And what they have in common is our amazing partners have models that predict outcomes. And the models rely on having fresh data. And we think that's the hardest part of the problem, is getting data to your models. And that's what we're focused on.
And in this case, like for recommendations, where's the data coming from? Who owns that data?
So with one of our partners, Whatnot, they're the largest live streaming marketplace in the United States. It's their data, and that's true across all of our customers. It's also their model. But before Chalk, what they were doing is when you would load their app, the home screen would be populated with a set of recommendations that was generated in batch the night before. So they would do this daily, nightly job, in fact, where they would run across their entire user base and generate a set of recommendations that would populate the For You feed when you open the app. But what they wanted to do was make that fresher and more real time. And what they realized is maybe yesterday I was browsing for a lot of sneakers, and so the feed's populated with sneakers, but maybe today I'm interested in Pokemon cards. And if you're generating the recs a day before, you're still showing the sneakers. With Chalk, we're able to now instantly update the feed every time you load the home screen of the app. So again, it's their data, it's their predictive models, but we really think the hardest part of the problem is often getting data to your models, especially when it's complex, especially if you care about freshness, and especially if you want to really do that computation right when a user is interacting with your app.
So is it the case where it's most relevant in retail scenarios? So e-commerce, people are fickle, like from what, as you're pointing out, from one day to the next, they're looking at a new thing and there's loads of data, probably like insane amount of data you could help kind of bridge to the model. Is that kind of an application that you're focused on?
Yeah, thank you. Our backgrounds, me, my two amazing co-founders, are actually in fintech.
Hmm.
And so you can imagine when you're moving money, when you're making a fraud decision, a lending decision, real time and fresh is a requirement. And so my co-founder, Elliot, was one of the first 10 engineers at a firm. When he started, they said, "Hey, Elliot, we want to make these instant lending decisions at checkout. Go build our data infrastructure." And he did. And then he had a startup with Andy. It was a neobank, so a consumer bank. And he built a similar system. They were acquired by Credit Karma. They built a similar system again. And my background, I helped launch the first version of Google Wallet. And then I started a company called Index that I sold to Stripe a few years ago, which is now called Stripe Terminal, which was in-person payments. And so sort of across all of these things, we saw that for money movement, for lending, you have to have fresh data and make real-time decisions. And so those use cases inspired us, but we never thought of Chalk as fintech specific. We do have a lot of amazing fintech customers, including Mission Lane and Moneyline and Melio and Ramp and many others. But today we're fortunate, as you mentioned, to have great partners in e-commerce. We have marketplaces like Whatnot, Turo, Apartment List. We're working on identity stuff with Socure, Persona. So really a very broad range of use cases, because I think everyone is seeing real time makes consumer experiences better. It reduces fraud. So you save money, it increases revenue because stuff is so much better. And so we started from an industry perspective where it was required, but I think Chalk is really applicable across effectively any company that wants to use data to make decisions.
Hmm. I think where this is most apparent is for anyone on Netflix or on one of these streaming platforms. And sometimes the options are changing, sometimes they're not, sometimes they're just shown in different ways. I guess, how does the batch versus, I don't know if Netflix is using your technology or if they have something in-house that's as sophisticated, maybe they're still batching, but could you point out how your technology would play into that scenario?
Yeah, absolutely. So Netflix is famous for doing a great job of this. All that said, they spent like a decade doing batch recommendations, a nightly job. So when you would log in the next day, you would see a set of things they suggested that you watch, that you might be interested in based on what you've watched before. But for, I don't remember the years, but maybe 2000 through 2010, something like that, I might be a little off. It was not being updated based on the preview you just saw, the 2 seconds of a clip you just watched. Today, of course, they're doing an amazing job. And that's something they built in-house. What's interesting about Chalk, sometimes people ask us, who are your main competitors? And the answer is, there isn't a commercial solution in the market that can do what we do. And so companies wind up, they're stuck. They have great solutions for this batch training kind of jobs like Databricks or Snowflake. What often happens is companies will wind up caching the data in something called a feature store. Google has a solution called Vertex. Amazon has something called SageMaker. And those are caches. Well, the advantage is that they're very low latency. So if you do this huge pre-processing job, you can then cache the data in a feature store so you can serve it really quickly, but the answers are old. It's fast to serve, but it's pre-processed. But there's this awkward point in the middle where, like, what if you still want it to be fast, but you want to do some math? You want to do a little computation in the moment in response to a user click or loading a page. Companies are stuck. So really, who do we compete against? Primarily in-house solutions. And we sort of think there's a better way. Chalk, as I mentioned before, is sort of a very tried and true way of starting a company, which is I directly experienced this pain point. I built a solution for it a few times. This is Elliot. And now we're doing it as a company because we think not everyone should have to rebuild this again and again.
Mm-hmm. Now, if we were to take a look at your customer base, you mentioned fintech, you mentioned Whatnot in that space. Which is the most promising from your view? Obviously, you're applicable across sectors, but are there certain ones that you're most honed in on and you're trying to push on to help accelerate kind of the top line of your business?
Yeah, thank you. We really think that there's nothing industry specific about Chalk. And so we got our start in fintech and have some great fintech customers. Today, that's maybe about half of our customers, but we're doing really cool stuff in marketplaces, in risk and fraud, in identity verification, in e-commerce, in some healthcare stuff. So we're seeing a lot of really cool applications. I think what they all have in common is they have a huge amount of data. The data is really complex, meaning it's coming from a lot of different places. And they want to do some real processing on the data before serving an answer or a prediction to a user. And they want it to be fast. They want it to be really fresh. And so that applies to a lot of different companies. We're doing really cool stuff in logistics, e-commerce. Sort of the sky is the limit in a lot of ways, but we're kind of excited to keep expanding from our start.
You recently raised a big Series A, great investors. So you've reached some scale. Can you tell us a little bit about the scale of your company currently?
Yeah, for sure. Well, I'm very proud to say last year we set out to triple our revenue, and we did about 3.5x year over year. And this year we're off to triple again. I don't know if it gets harder or easier. Ask me in a year, but we're off to the races and really psyched to be growing very, very quickly. I think what's been incredible for us, and how do you do something like that? I'd say number one, you keep your customers. And so we're very lucky to have some amazing partners who sometimes start small with us and grow and stick around. So number one, you keep your customers. Number two, our customers are growing really, really quickly. We've seen huge growth from existing customers. And of course, we're adding new customers all of the time. So a lot of hard work, but a lot of fast growth. And we're really psyched about what's ahead.
It's interesting because like a lot of the folks we'll have on this podcast are not necessarily as rapidly scaling as your company is. You mentioned one critical piece to rapidly scaling is keeping your customers, but there's other elements behind that, the fundamentals of the business. You have a great set of founders here, people you've known. Tell us a little bit more about how you came together and decided to embark on this journey together.
Yeah, thank you. Well, we go way back. And that's nice because we're not just figuring out if we like each other or how to talk to each other or how to work together. My co-founders, Andy and Elliot, met when Elliot was a freshman at Stanford. Andy was a senior in high school. And this is a true story. Came Advent weekend, slept on Elliot's floor, and they have been best friends and working together ever since, which is silly, but true. I met Elliot when he was graduating from Stanford, and he actually interviewed at my last company and totally didn't join, but we really liked each other, and his roommate from Stanford joined. So we got to know each other over the years. And all these years later, the stars were aligned for us to all come together. And here we are. So kind of a lot of shared history, a lot of shared context because we were working on similar problems for a long time. And I'd say really, we came together first and said, hey, we'd love to do something together. And we always thought Chalk was going to be the one, but we spent some time to test and validate and make sure that our ideas about how the world was going to evolve were consistent with how other people thought about it. And today, we're really lucky to be off to the races.
And was it fairly obvious how you would divide up your roles?
Yeah, so I'm not writing our software, but Andy and Elliot are both amazing and brilliant in a million dimensions, including as technical leaders for the company. And so really, I'm our CEO, but I think of my job as trying to do all the other stuff and to really, at a high level, empower everybody on the team to do their jobs and do the things they're really special at. And so I think it's a really easy and natural collaboration. I think at their last company, Elliot was their CEO and Andy was their CTO. I think Elliot never really wanted to do some of the things that you got to do in that job. And so this has fit together really well. Again, I'm not writing our software. They are, and that really means they are leading our product and technical direction. And I'm trying to help out with everything else and obviously meet in the middle on lots of things as well.
Now, with the growth round, you brought in $50 million. How is that money being put to use? Is it primarily engineers, product? Where are you spending most of that?
Well, I think like lots of early stage companies, the primary way we spend money is on incredibly talented people who help us to build and grow the team. One way that I kind of think about and slightly joke about the business is I would say the rocket science is going really well. And what I mean is the core product and engineering effort, that's the creation. That's the really unique, incredible stuff that we're lucky to be doing and sharing with our customers. But then we have other things to do that I will jokingly say are sort of known sciences, which include hiring people, marketing, selling software, we're a developer product. But what I would say for those things are they're very hard work, but we don't need to literally invent how to hire people or how to do sales. We have to execute against them. And there's a lot of hard work and a lot of expertise, but we don't need to invent it. So we've kind of got the rocket science and the known sciences. Today, the team is about 2/3 engineering and about 1/3 on our go-to-market and operations side. I expect we'll scale in a pretty similar way as we go. You've got me in New York City today. I'm in our office here. We also have an office in San Francisco. Today, the team is about 45 people. We expect we'll maybe be around 70 by the end of this year and maybe double again next year. And so we've got a lot of hiring to do, but hiring is not the success metric. We're able to hire. We are hiring because we're lucky to have so many partners who are growing so much with us. And so it kind of justifies and demands more attention and more people to help with all that growth.
The other critical element when you're scaling quickly is having the right capital partners on board. You've got a great set of investors, as mentioned. Tell us how you went about selecting your investors.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll share one more thing on the previous question too. I said we're primarily spending money on people. I think it's also just worth saying explicitly, we're not spending a lot of money on infrastructure. And some of these crazy, amazing AI startups are spending all their cash on infrastructure. What's really different about our model is we deploy our software into the cloud environments of our customers. What that means is their data is protected, they have control over security and privacy and everything that's important to them. But what it also means is they pay their Amazon bill directly. They'll pay their GCP or OpenAI bill or whatever it is. They're paying for their own infrastructure costs, and they pay us separately. So that means we're able to have a really high margin business even from the beginning. So definitely the capital raise is on people, not for infrastructure, because of how we've constructed the business. So that's that answer. But to your other question, yeah, we're lucky to have amazing capital partners. I think that as we went into this round, we were thinking about really three things. I'd say, number one, we were looking for long-term capital partners. We're really lucky that we've done this before, and we're not looking to quickly flip a company. We're looking to build a really long-term business. I hope maybe we'll have the chance to go public one day. And so, of course, you need capital partners who are aligned with that idea of how you want to build and grow, whether it is literally their capital or at a minimum, their alignment and support in finding the right partners for that kind of long-term journey. I'd say number two, as we build out our team, and especially as we build out our exec team and hire more and more senior people at the company, the best people know the best people. That's not a secret, but we certainly think that the right investors can help us to build out our leadership team over time. And I'd say number three, you want people with kind of a shared vision of the world, with some alignment, who can also provide some great guidance and advice from patterns that they've seen. I think that we were really lucky that our Series A went very quickly. And I think that's because we met some people who had a shared vision of the world. And top of that list was Aiden and Nancy at Felicis. And the difference is an investor who says, well, this seems interesting, but I don't know anything about this space. Can you share with me what you're doing? Versus Felicis said, hey, we wrote an investment memo a year ago describing how we think data infrastructure needs to be in the future. And Chalk is building exactly what we think is needed in the world. It was more like, I've been looking for you my whole life. Should we get married now? And that's a very different kind of partnership than like, oh, you seem interesting. Tell me more. It was much more like, wow, we already had a shared view of the world. And that's a really powerful beginning. I'd say number two, they're incredible people. And life is short, right? We want to work with great people. That is always really important. And number three, I think we were really impressed with their portfolio of companies they've invested in, bets they've taken, and really proud to be part of the cohort of companies that is part of Felicis.
Talking about the selection process, and obviously you mentioned some of the attributes you're looking for, so presumably they brought that value to the table. Was there something perhaps surprising that they brought to the table that you didn't expect, which was a big bonus?
Yeah, I think that existing alignment, that pre-existing memo that said, we think the world needs ABC, which is exactly what you're building, was not an expectation going into the process. I'd also say that with our seed round, our investors were people we had known a long time. You've seen that we've kind of organized our lives around people in a lot of ways. We're working together. We've known each other a long time. For our seed round, we were very fortunate. Eric Schmidt led the Series A in my last company, and he invested here. General Catalyst did the Series B in my last company, and they invested here. Unusual Ventures did the first round in Andy and Elliot's last company. They invested here, along with Marty Chavez, who's a great friend, Will Gabert from Stripe, Huey Lin, who was Elliot's first boss at a firm. So like all of our seed investors were people who have been part of our lives for a really long time and joined us on this journey as well. So maybe we went in also imagining, I don't know, maybe it's going to be someone we've known a really long time. In fact, we met new people who we fell in love with. Happily, it was mutual. I don't know that it was a surprise to fall in love with someone new, but that's always exciting. But I think what was definitely a surprise was to meet people who had really done their homework and their research and had an existing view of the world that was so aligned with how we see it.
Mhm. We're heading into the tail end of the conversation. Before I ask the last two questions, did you ever think you'd be an entrepreneur, like early on in your life as a child or high school years, heading into college? Did you foresee becoming an entrepreneur?
Honestly, I was always building stuff and making stuff. And so, not a huge surprise, I think.
Okay, got it. All right, last two questions. One, can you tell us about a person who has had a profound influence on you?
Well, my mom comes to mind at the moment. I don't know, maybe that's too easy of an answer, but this is very unrelated to work, but I'm getting ready to have my first kid in a few months. And so
Congrats.
becoming a parent is certainly on my mind. I already feel like a bit of a parent with a company. It's a certain type of parenting. It's a little bit different. And so, of course, as I think about entering that chapter, certainly my mom and my dad are very much on my mind, both, how they've helped shape me and help me to grow and get to where I am today and what I can learn and take from that as I pass it forward in a sense.
Mhm. Last question. Can you tell us about a charity, cause, or other endeavor that you're passionate about?
Yeah, I think that learning is really important. And so I've been really fortunate to have tons of great teachers in my life. And certainly, I hope that lots of people will have some of the same opportunities that I had. And really, I think that comes from early exposure to reading and writing and math in some really fundamental ways. So there are a lot of great organizations that support early learning and growing. And, without naming a specific one, I would say that's certainly a big priority for me and something I think about a lot. And of course, math adjacent to coding, it's not even the future. That's just where we are. And so certainly something that I think we should be really focused on.
Excellent. Well, Marc, I want to thank you again for taking the time. This has been a wonderful conversation.
Amazing. Thank you so much, RJ. It's great meeting you.